And we are live on the Icecast Live. Welcome and hello to my co-host, Olly MacNamee. How you doing, Olly?
I'm great. Very well, thank you, Shane. Week off from work, so all good. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Not a week off, though. Because it's half term, isn't it?
It's half term, yes.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, so you've enjoyed a week of leisure.
Yeah, I've been quite busy on the website this week. I always try and keep myself busy. And a few trips to the tip, just finishing off the kitchen. But yeah, all good at the back end of the week. Busy weekend, enjoyable weekend ahead. And that starts tonight with our guest.
Yes, definitely. And our guest tonight is Mr. Reilly Brown, who I've been trying to get on the show for a little while, actually. But obviously he's in demand because he's incredibly popular. But he's very graciously given us a little bit of his time tonight. Now, it is going to be a slightly shorter show than normal because he has got somewhere to be straight after the show. So we've agreed to get through it as quickly as we possibly can. So we won't waste any more time nattering amongst ourselves. We'll play the intro and get right into it, mate.
Cool.
Sam can't play it, can he? I've got to play it. Good evening and welcome back to the Icecast Live, and welcome, Reilly. How you doing?
Hey guys, how you doing? Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure, mate. It's our pleasure. As we were saying earlier, offline, it is. Olly was just saying it's half term for him, and he's very busy. And you've got a little one yourself as well. Is it? Do your school holidays revolve around now?
I got to this week we had, I think we had either a holiday or it was just parent teacher conferences. I don't know. They always have excuses to keep the kids home or send them home early. That's not great for deadlines,
you
but I suppose it has to be.
Indeed. One of the first questions I wanted to ask. Sorry,
5-year-old. There's a bit of a lag, so I don't hopefully won't talk over it too much.
There is indeed a lag.
Yeah.
So we'll ask the questions, and then I suppose we'll just have to manage with the lag and understand that there's going to be a bit of a delay. So my first question was, how did you yourself get into the comic industry?
Yeah, your sound cut off right as you started asking the question, so I don't know what that said. Man.
Olly, did you hear my question?
I heard it. Yeah, if anything, it's Reilly that's breaking up for me.
Right. Okay. Maybe it's the. Even though it's the internet, it's a long way. It's all the way from the States.
I'm writing it in the private chat. I'm assuming Reilly's got access to private chat, has he?
Yes, we can.
Yes, there we go. That might be easier.
Yeah.
But now Reilly's frozen on my end.
It's frozen.
For a second, I could try. Maybe I'll set it up on a different. Right now, I'm just using my phone. Maybe I could try my computer.
Okay.
More juice.
Yeah, we'll give that a go, Reilly. No problem.
We can carry on chatting. Don't you worry about that. We'll carry on. Don't you worry about that.
You come back when you're ready.
In the meantime, Shane, I believe you've got quite a busy weekend ahead of you.
Yes, I'll just get that in. Well,
you may as well. It is your show. Why wouldn't you?
So this weekend, it is the launch weekend for Dead by Dawn, the horror anthology that I've done with Andy Richmond and a host of talented creators. And we've got signings on Saturday at Forbidden Planet Worlds Apart in Birmingham,
Yeah.
Forbidden Planet Wolverhampton, Cardiff, Manchester, and Nottingham, and there are artists at each one, and writers. At Cardiff, we've got Patrick Goddard and Ben Dixon. At Wolverhampton, we've got Jimmy Broxton. With me in Birmingham, we've got Charlie Adlard. We've got Lyndon Webb and Chris Askham at Nottingham. And in Manchester, we've got Stephen Daly, who is also a TV production designer and worked on Into the Badlands. I don't know if you watched that on Netflix. That was a show I quite enjoyed, actually. And he also worked on Peaky Blinders. So yeah, very good. It's going to be a great weekend, I think.
That's a huge task to pull off, because normally signings are in one store and usually in that there London. You've done quite well to get into Cardiff, into Manchester, into Wolverhampton, into Nottingham, and of course into my favourite store. I've got to say that, Worlds Apart in Birmingham, previously Nostalgia and Comics, the oldest comic shop in the UK.
It is, yeah.
I didn't know you were going to be around, Shane, on Saturday, because I'm hoping to pop in there, which is nice because I don't have to queue up then, do I?
Well, brilliant. I will. It'd be great to see you, mate.
Yeah.
It's
part of my busy weekend schedule.
Well, at least I know one person's turning up at the signing.
Oh, I think there'll be quite a few. I know you know Neil Patel as well. If Neil's watching, hello Neil. He'll be there. And I know the comic shop's pushing it as much as they can. So I'm looking forward to it, definitely.
Oh, me too, mate. Me too. I mean, I have to say that Forbidden Planet International have been incredibly supportive of the book.
Yeah,
they put in a really decent order. They're doing these signings. They've really helped promote the signings on their website. They've shared all of our posts. It's been absolutely brilliant. So can't fault them at all. Right, I think Riley is trying to come back on.
Right, you did a good plug there.
Yeah. I know, Sam. We got Sam in the.
We don't need him, do we? We're doing so well on our own now.
And he's disappeared again. Sam came and then he went. So we are now waiting for Riley. His phone wasn't really working, so he's going to try with a computer. What sometimes happens is if his phone was an iPhone, then that won't work with StreamYard. So hopefully he's got a laptop handy. So he's trying to get that to work right now.
I find it hard to believe a comic book artist of his caliber would not have a laptop at least at hand.
Well, yeah, my concern is it's probably a bloody Apple one.
Just download Chrome or Firefox. There are other servers out there.
There are. So hopefully he'll be with us shortly. We are still connected to him on his phone. He's still in the studio there, but obviously
that's fair enough. Yeah. And will we be seeing you at Thought Bubble in a week's time, Shane? Are you going?
I'm afraid not, mate. No, it's just that little bit too far and a little bit too expensive for me at the moment.
That's fair enough. Yeah,
it's Harrogate. It's expensive, isn't it? And it's a bit of a trek. It's just a little bit beyond my means.
That's understandable. I think that's a lot of people's sort of response as well. I know a few artists from America have had to cancel very much last minute, but it's still a good looking show, I must admit.
Yeah, I mean, if I could be there, I would be definitely. A lot of friends are there. Although I have noticed a lot of artists and writers saying that they're not going because of the COVID situation.
Yes,
they're concerned about the increase in cases and that they've not had a booster.
Totally understand.
I mean, it's totally understandable. Hopefully, it's not going to affect events next year. I mean, we said that last year, didn't we? It's like, it'll be all right by 2020, and then the whole of 2020 was pretty much a wipeout, and then this year was a wipeout, and so you don't know, do you? But I'm really hoping that with the vaccines and the fact that so many people have had it now. I mean, we are getting into crowd immunity, aren't we?
I also think the comic book community are educated enough and intelligent enough to make the right decisions, both with the vaccine and the right decisions for them to go to the convention or not. I know that Thought Bubble have done the right thing as has MCM, which is on next weekend as well in Birmingham,
Yes.
by making sure that anyone who comes in has had to have a negative test in the last 48 hours. You've got to prove that going in. They're asking for everyone to wear masks. And so it's worth repeating that here to anyone who's watching us who might be thinking of going to Thought Bubble next weekend. But you're right, it's going to bring a lot of people in from different parts of the country. And for a lot of artists and fans like myself, it's going to be the first time people have traveled that far afield and mixed with so many different people.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? When you're mixing with people from all over the country as well, your risk is increased, isn't it? So I do understand people's trepidation about it, you know. But hopefully it'll still be a great show, and I'm sure it will. You know,
I think from a very selfish point of view, because there's less people there now in terms of creators, I won't be as rushed. I'd like to think so. I'll be able to get around. And still maybe not lose my voice by the Sunday, which is always what happens.
It'd be a nice chilled atmosphere, perhaps.
I hope so.
Yeah.
But it's mainly because of the drinking I do that I end up losing my voice.
Well, I'm not going to say anything about that, mate. I've experienced you at conventions. I think we all know what you're talking about.
Well, it's my little breakthrough. I mean, it's my holiday going to Thought Bubble this year because I didn't get away like a lot of people. So I am looking forward to it, I must admit.
Oh, good. Well, I have a good time, mate.
Yeah.
Should we put up the Kickstarter while we're waiting for Riley?
Why not? Yeah, because it looks very interesting, doesn't it? And let me just get that up. There we go. Outrage.
Here we go.
Which is collecting a comic book originally started on Webtoon digitally. So, of course, one of the questions we both wanted to ask Riley was, what steps did he take to change the artwork that appears on Webtoons into a more principal format?
Yeah. Yeah, because it is a different format, isn't it?
Yeah.
Although it looks as though the print is, you know, not your normal comics format, perhaps. Maybe they've done something.
Well, I think if I can get up one of the pictures of the print page, there are better examples further down, and I've got chapter 1 of Outrage. So there's a sample of the print page. Let me get a more action-packed one. Yeah,
it looks a little bit more sort of like magazine-y format than the usual US
and
comics
then
format.
If I just click over to the same page as it appears on Webtoon, quite similar. But of course, you've got that scrolling action, haven't you?
Yes.
Should have started from the top. So I can kind of see where Riley.
Let's let him in.
Let's throw him straight into the mouth of the lions and ask him.
Hey,
all
Riley,
about
how's
it.
that?
Hey, there we go.
Whoa, different
This is
room,
a little bit
different
better.
look.
There's no delay. Fantastic.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. Sometime between us setting it up and going live, my internet totally crapped out. And but I got it. You know, we're all set up now, so this should be good. I hear you much better now. It seems like there's no delay, so hopefully this will do it.
Yeah, that's true.
Sorry about that, guys.
That's okay. You know, it happens a lot on these shows. It's still quite young, this technology, isn't it? And there's still a lot of kinks to be worked out, I think. And so, yeah, it does happen, but that's cool. So we've started looking at the Kickstarter, Riley.
Cool.
While you were offline, and Ollie has a question.
Well, we were talking about, we were flitting between the print page and how it appears on Webtoons, and of course, the obvious question, as you mentioned in your campaign, is the process from turning it on what essentially is a scrolling channel onto a printed page. How difficult was that to do?
For me, it was actually pretty easy because I pretty much just draw the comics on the same paper I always do. So I kind of set it up in a regular Marvel DC style. Actually, I can show you. I can show you some of these right here. Here we go. Here are some pages from the series. So you can see it's a pretty standard. This way. There we go.
Yeah.
Standard comic book page right there.
Cool. Oh, it's nice to see the pencils.
Yeah.
So I'm presuming then, Riley, what you do, you produce these pencils and then you ink digitally.
Well, no, these were inked by Jay Leiston, who
All
I just
right.
emailed him the pages and he printed them out blue line. Normally he would ink right on the pages, but that largely depends on how tight we are with the deadlines and if we have time for the post office to actually get it there on time. So, I'll email it to him and ship it, and then whatever is the most expedient is what how he'll approach it. But so when it came to arranging the artwork, it was pretty easy. There were definitely a few snags. There's a few spots where like, I did some funky stuff with the scroll that didn't quite translate, but with enough cutting and pasting, you could make it work. Maybe a little bit of editing the backgrounds or something. The hard part was the dialogue, because if you read the webtoon, and if you know Fabian Nicieza's work at all, he likes to talk. He likes to get his characters talking. So some of these things with webtoon, it's great because you're not limited by the size of the page. Some of these panels, you can put them as far away or make them as big or small as you want, and just add as much dialogue as you want. And so when it came to putting them on the page, there was definitely a few where he had these long soliloquies that I was like, this is one tiny panel in a page that has 11 panels. We're going to have to trim a little bit of this. So he actually rewrote a significant amount of not a significant, but a worthy amount of the dialogue. So even if you've read the webtoon version, this is still going to be pretty unique. There's going to be a lot of stuff you haven't read yet, or new takes on some of the old lines and stuff.
That's cool. That's cool. And you're doing very well on the Kickstarter, I can see as well.
Yeah, so far so good. Oh, it looks more impressive when it's in dollars, I have to say.
Let's just magically turn that into dollars.
There we go.
I think I can do that.
Yes,
when you hover, it shows it. That's better. But yeah, we were funded. We were fully funded within like an hour.
Wow.
And we were over $10,000 within about a little over 24 hours. So that was pretty good start.
That is incredible. That is really incredible. I mean, both you and Fabian have got big fan bases, which is always helpful, isn't it? I mean,
it is. But I mean, let's be honest. My fan base doesn't touch Fabian's. Like that guy, he created Deadpool. He wrote the Executioner's Song, which was one of my favorite stories from when I was growing up.
Give it a few decades.
He ripped Wolverine's metal out of his skeleton. Like that's who Fabian is. So it's definitely it's been a dream come true to do a creator-owned thing with him. That's been amazing. Even after working with him for so long at Marvel. But I think my fan base isn't bad. The Batman Fortnite did pretty well. So hopefully,
we were going to mention it. I mean, I think your fan base has probably grown considerably over the last year or two, right? Because that book did absolutely incredible numbers, didn't it?
Yeah, it's was on the Publishers Weekly top 10 or something like that. It was one of the few Western books to break into that manga deadlock at the top of the charts there. So I'm happy with how it's doing.
And I mean, as Sam said before we started the show, it's the only book that he could get his kids to read, because they're not big comics fans. But Batman Fortnite, they were into it because they were familiar with the Fortnite property.
Yeah. Well, it was a fun project for a lot of reasons. But one of the cool things about it was that it's like the comic is continuity for the video game. Like Donald Mustard, who created Fortnite, and he's one of the co-writers on the book. They were at the point in Fortnite where they wanted to start revealing some of its secrets, and he was just like, "Well, the video game format isn't necessarily the best format to tell this kind of story. Plus, if we're going to solve the greatest mystery in Fortnite, we should have the greatest detective in the world." And so he wanted to do a Batman crossover to tell the story. So if you wanted to get the story of Fortnite, you had to read the comic. Plus, it came with video game codes to get game content and stuff like that. So
that's a really good incentive, isn't it?
I mean, it's like one of those times where it doesn't happen often in the comics industry, but when they do a tie into something and you feel like they really did it right, like how many times has there been a movie that came out where people say Marvel and DC should like do something to promote it, get the movie readers to go into the comic book stores. Well, with Batman Fortnite, they did exactly that, and it, like the retailers couldn't keep it in stock, so it was amazing.
Yeah, well, hopefully they'll learn a lesson from that. The bigger publishers, and say, like when there's a movie, maybe include a cinema ticket in with the comic or something like that.
That could be cool.
That would work, wouldn't it? Because it's the same principle as what you did with the game.
Or like a Disney, or a Disney Plus or HBO Max something. Maybe you could see one of their exclusive things. Like, but the other thing was, I feel like a lot of times these video game crossovers I kind of just treated like merchandise. Like, oh, it's just another piece of merchandise for whatever this game is, and like the tie-ins don't. I don't know. They're not always everything you hope they might be.
They don't always add to the mythology of the game, do they? They're just like
or the comic book character. They just seem like they're easy to just ignore, and you're not going to miss anything. But this one, it was part of Fortnite, and it explained things that fans had been wondering about Fortnite for a long time. And also, just the way we approached it with Batman is, I feel like we told a really good Batman story, especially with his relationship with Catwoman in there. That if you're a Batman fan, you're going to read this, and you're, to you, it's going to be part of continuity. Like it's, you can, like any Batman goes on a dozen adventures a day, so you can ignore any one of them and come right back in. But I think if you read this one, especially if you're a fan of the Batcat series or anything Tom King's been doing with his Batman stuff, I feel like, you'll read this and be like, oh, this is a really worthy entry into the Batman mythos.
It definitely complements it well. And I think, we have got a little bit of a feedback there, but we'll try and ignore it. The thing about it is, Batman, as you say, if you looked at his time schedule in real life, the guy doesn't sleep. He's like doing all these adventures, and you think, well, where does he get time to do anything else?
I don't. I think about this a lot. Batman's one of the harder ones because has so many of his own books, plus he guest stars in so many books, plus he's on a regular character in other books, like teaming up with Superman or Justice League or whatever. So he's a tough one. But for most other characters, I feel like, if you think about it, if they only do like one adventure on the weekends, and like, the adventure takes like, 1 day or whatever. And if a superhero only went out like once a week, you'd think they were kind of a lazy superhero. But even then, it's like 52 adventures a year. And if each of those adventures is a 6-issue story arc, then it's actually not as much crime fighting as you might think. So
I'd like to think all the superheroes that haven't got their regular books, those are the weekenders. Those are the ones that only come out on a Saturday.
Right.
Their diaries aren't as full. They've got, adventure on the weekend, go and visit Nan on Monday,
Exactly. they gotta hold down their secret identities, they got the wife nagging them to pick up groceries and stuff.
Batman hasn't even got time to visit his mum and dad's grave.
Once every 3 days.
He's got time to reminisce over the origin of Batman very regularly. That seems to come up all the time. I mean, as well as Batman, obviously, you worked on Deadpool. Was that how you got to know Fabian?
Yes. It was literally the second comic book I worked on at Marvel. So
was that daunting?
It I don't know. Well, it was tough because like the first comic I did was the Marvel 2005 holiday special, and I did that, and it was a lot of fun, and it was cool because it was a chance to work on like all the major Marvel characters like Spider-Man, Iron Man, like they were all in there. And of course, the next project they put me on is Deadpool, who is like, so they looked at what I'd done and say, okay, you're not drawing any of those guys. We're going to give you this other one. But it's something that any creator will tell you, you have to break into the industry more than once. So like I got that first gig and I was like, okay, we're good though, right? Like I'm done with this one. I get another project, and it was just crickets for like a few months.
Oh no!
So
it's like a first date, isn't it? You say to the girl at the end of the day, any chance of another date in the crickets? You know, it's like,
Yeah,
oh, no.
yeah. You gotta wait for her to get a
Speak for
little
yourself,
desperate.
Shane.
You know, wait for.
Well, that's my experience anyway. Yeah. So, because we've managed to get around there to the first question that I asked before the internet killed it. So, you know, sort of how you got into comics. So, I mean, 2005, I suppose relatively you're quite new, but when you think about it, that's what, 15 years experience.
Yeah,
That's that. You know, when you think of it like that, you're almost a veteran.
I've been doing it for a while. I mean, certainly not as long as some guys. Like, you know,
No, you're not legendary yet, because legendary, as we talked about last week, often just shorthand for old.
Yeah, we were chatting with Ron Friends last week. And
Oh yeah,
call it. He's definitely a legend. He's like, no, I'm not a legend. I'm not a legend.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. It's like working with Fabian Nicieza. It's crazy because, you know, when I got into X-Men, he was the writer, and so like to do so much work with him is awesome. It's kind of like if I went back in time and told my 11-year-old self that, like, oh, you're reading that X-Men comic, you're going to be working with that writer on these characters, you know, in 10 years or so, and so that so that's kind of cool.
Almost a dream come true, really, isn't it? And
yeah,
it was quite funny because Fabian did message us when he knew you were on the show, and he said something along the lines of give him a hard time or something like that. Go hard on his ass or something like that. No mercy. It's like, oh, I can't do that. It's the first time he's been on the show. We can't
scare off our guests.
Can't get me with the hard-hitting questions, the big exposés.
Yeah, not this time anyway. Maybe next time. Once we know you a little better.
Yeah.
So as we are a little bit short on time, because it's a short show, this one, we'll talk a little bit about the new book, Outrage, and about how it came about and what the concept is about it. We looked at the artwork, great looking artwork, and but what was the idea behind the story in the book?
Well, the basic concept is, it's like, when someone posts something online that makes you wish you could just reach across the internet and smack them.
Oh yeah,
it's about a guy that can do that.
Oh,
and,
right.
And which is exactly how we start off the series. Because everyone's thought about that before, and it's a fun concept to explore. Like, oh, what people say things online to each other. There's no way they'd say to each other face to face.
Oh,
but
definitely.
What if you but what if you take that barrier down and now you actually have a guy that can travel through the internet and confront, the bullies and people who
all those keyboard warriors.
Yeah, of a wide variety. We try our best to be equal opportunity outragers and give everyone a little bit of help. But sometimes some certain factions are a little more belligerent than others, and it's a little hard to be completely even without being like, because if you try to be tit for tat, eventually you're being unfair because you're giving one group of people more hell than they deserve and letting another group like get away with stuff. So we definitely this is a favorite target, are like serial harassers, like you're showing here, a guy who's sending unsolicited dick pics, because that's just the most hilarious, ridiculous thing to
That's a great panel. I love that. It's great. I mean, it's the last thing you're going to expect, isn't it? It's just going to slap through the screen. What a great idea.
Like, you're just so confused.
Oh, you would be, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Like, how would you, like, just think about it. How would you even approach this situation? Like, something's coming through my screen, and now he's going to talk to me, and I have to defend myself. Now, am I talking to him? Am I just running away? Like, what a bizarre situation.
It sort of reminds me of that character. I'm not sure if you'll remember it.
What, Kelly LeBrock in Weird Science?
No, stop it, Ollie. Video Man from Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends.
Oh, that's that? Yeah, it is a bit, especially with kind of like the pixelated face type of thing.
Yeah.
My inspiration for the face was more the computer character from the Jetsons. Do you remember him?
Oh, yeah. That's going back as well. Yeah.
That was kind of what I was thinking as far as his face, which is very similar to Video Man. And, there's, it's, a lot of people have had similar faces, but It's fun to make use of that. The kind of like, where his face is an animation that appears on the screen.
Yeah.
And a rather simply drawn one. So, at least a fun facial
great
expression.
build up.
Yeah.
The reveal.
Yeah, I love the fact that you're seeing parts
that
of him.
works really well on the scrolling, doesn't it?
It's a really good.
I don't want to go too fast, but equally, I want to get to the face whilst we're still talking about it.
Yeah.
No, that's great storytelling, though, Riley. How you've built up the tension there, and you just see bits of the character like that.
Thanks. Like that was.
There we go.
Yeah, there he is.
That's a great reveal.
Glory.
I imagine that had to change on the printed page. This particular scene.
It didn't change that much. It's pretty much the big shot. I mean, obviously, it's not a page. We printed the book. See, the thing with the book is it's 10 feet tall by 6 inches wide. So that's how. No, it's
you would have had some fans scared then.
What we did, we kind of broke this up. So the big reveal panel, that's essentially a splash page, and the previous panels that build up to it, they're all stacked on top of each other, just like this. So you have that same tension. And yeah, it's just we figure out ways to do it. But one of the things I like playing around with different formats, different comic book formats, because there's different storytelling techniques, especially around things like a good reveal. And so that scene in particular was like, oh, I want to play with that vertical format and really see, what can I do with a vertical storytelling thing that I can't normally do in print or in some of the other comics, like digital comics I'd done, like on Comixology or whatever, where it was a different type of format. So,
and how long did it take you to get Outrage's look right? Was it something that came to you immediately, or did you have to noodle about a bit?
I had a general idea. Like I knew I wanted to have some kind of digital face screen type thing like that.
Right.
The rest of his look, I went through so many different versions. I think originally, I was kind of bouncing back and forth between super skinny and lanky, or kind of a really, really big, gorilla type of thing. There's definitely a few gorilla versions, some with giant gorilla arms, but a skinny body. Then the things got kind of Mega Man-ish for a while. And then this one I kind of think of as sort of the Voltron Power Rangers type of version.
And was the color scheme always there? Because it's a very dynamic color scheme.
Not yet. That went through a few versions too. I think I always wanted to use red because of Outrage and stuff. Red's kind of a good color. Makes
for that.
Sense. And also, coming off of Deadpool, we wanted to make him sort of reminiscent of Deadpool with a similar color scheme. I think sometimes the yellow might have been blue. There was definitely blue in there for a while.
Okay.
But ultimately we came to that. I felt, I pretty much created a whole Google image search for myself and just picked the best one.
I think it's a classic color scheme, though, isn't it? The red and yellow.
It's a great look.
Yeah, it works for so many characters over the years, and you can't really go wrong with it. I mean, the first one that springs to mind is popular is Iron Man, obviously.
Oh, Iron Man or the Flash,
The Flash, yeah. And then you got the sort of other characters like X-Men. There's Sunfire,
that's
a bit more unusual.
But heroes always have the primary colors, red, usually red and yellow or blue, or those powerful primary colors let you know that that's the good guy, sort of in this case.
Yeah,
or just sort of the good guy.
And this Kickstarter just collects the first season. I know there are 2 seasons available on Webtoons, and I certainly know some of the targets get bigger and bigger and really go to the seat of power in the US. And I'll say no more than that. What other add-ons are there that fans might be keen to back? I'm trying to get those up as well, but I'm also aware we've only got about 7 minutes left.
The add-ons are what have we got? We've got a bunch of prints. There's different versions of the book, there's soft cover or hardcover. We've got some prints. We've got some enamel pins. I think those look really cool.
Everyone likes a pin.
Yeah, those things are hot these days. And I think, Outrage's various emojis, as we call them, are great use for that. And yeah, there's some sketch options and stuff where like I'll do a commission for people, or there's things where just signed, like me and Fabian will do like a signed print or something in there.
There we go.
And then there's digital things. Like I've got right now you're looking at my sketchbooks that I sell at conventions. We've got digital versions of those PDFs that are add-ons to this. So
cool. There's a lot of cool stuff there, actually.
yeah, thank you.
I like the wallpaper.
Yes.
Yep.
It's cheeky. I like that. And the pins. I mean, there's something for every price range as well. That's the thing, isn't there?
Yeah.
I mean, if someone wants to just get the book, as a printed object, I think that's quite reasonable, isn't it?
Yep. Yeah. I mean,
There we go.
And
$24.
Yeah.
Yep. And Rocket Ship Entertainment, who's the publisher for the print version, they do an amazing print job. Like if you've ever seen any of their books, it's like they do such cool, it's brilliant design and such cool things. Like they'll incorporate foil and stuff on there, and shiny bits. Which being a fan from the '90s, I always love. If you can make it shiny, I'm there for it. Yeah.
It's funny looking back now. I remember at the time. All that 90s stuff, I found it quite nauseating, all the foil covers and the holograms and all that. But I look back at my collection now, because I bought them all. And
yeah, of course.
And I look back with a lot of affection on that stuff now, because so much effort went into making those comics special, and it doesn't happen much anymore. So it's it's not such a bad thing. I think what happened was at the time, a lot of the comics were just pushed out factory style, weren't they? And the interior quality wasn't always very good, which I think didn't help,
Right. They were definitely riding the speculation wave where it was like, oh, any number one was selling like crazy, so get as many number ones out as you could. And sometimes they didn't even bother with a number two, and
it got a bit like that when you're selling hundreds of thousands of number one. It's then how are they ever going to be collectible? Everybody and their mum's got one.
Right. And then if like there's no number two to keep it going, then like who even remembers the comic in 6 months?
Exactly. But it was fun.
But we're not, now I think the printing technology is caught up that it doesn't, and the speculation is but people are definitely, creators are more dedicated to quality these days. I think at least we are. I don't know.
Yes,
I think so. Yeah, I think definitely. I think there's more of a sort of concentration on good quality stuff, especially in the indie realm. I see it all the time. Guys like yourself and Fabian and who we spoke to last week, Ron Friends, who's working with Tom DeFalco and Sal Buscema. The quality of the books is really, really high. There's a lot of pride, I think, because it's, this is your stuff. You guys have created this. This is your own property. So I think that extra little bit of love goes in there, doesn't it?
Right. And yeah, when you put it up on the shelf, when it's like your creator-owned book, you really care about it, and you put it on the shelf, you want it to look really good. So I think so pledge to the Kickstarter, man. Get the book. It'll be great. It'll look great on your shelf.
Definitely. And one of the things I was wondering, actually, because I did notice the format isn't your normal American format. Was that just dictated because it was going from Webtoons to print?
It's yeah, well, it's the dimensions are the same. Like it could have been a regular comic book thing, but or the way you think of like a Marvel or DC size comic. But it is a little bit different just because that's the Webtoon market. They're used those readers read a lot of manga and stuff like that, and most of Rocket Ship's content comes from Webtoon. So they're trying to get it into those bookstore shelves and stuff like that.
Well, that makes sense. And Rocket Ship, as you were saying before, have really good print quality. I've not actually encountered them as a publisher before, probably because I'm an old man.
Well, they're new. They're very new. Like they've only been around for about a year. I think they launched at New York Comic Con, like during the pandemic, I think. So it wasn't even at New York Comic. Like I think this was their first year. Like they just won the Ringo Award for Best New Publisher.
That's impressive.
And
Yeah.
they're exploding. Like they're running Legendary's campaign for their Dune graphic.
Wow, right. They've
Really?
come a long way
Wow.
in a
Yeah,
short
so-
time. That
That's
must
a-
be
Yeah.
exciting.
Well, it's
Yeah.
Tom Akel's the guy that runs it, and he's great. Like he's he worked for Stan Lee for years. He was with MTV Geek when that was a big thing.
Right.
He was the guy who found he was kind of the editor-in-chief of Webtoon for a while. He's the one that originally brought us to Webtoon, so it was kind of an easy transition for us to keep working with him. But he's great. He is very smart. Like he's one of those guys that when I met him, I was like, okay, whatever company this guy goes to, like, follow him because he knows what he's doing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a hell of a pedigree, actually. You're just going through what he's done before. That's you can see why people have no hesitation in working with a publisher with that pedigree.
Right.
Sorry,
Make this
Ollie.
the last question.
Yeah.
Well, no, Shane, you go with the last question.
Well,
It's quarter to already.
You guys, we can have another
We got
5,
time
10
for
minutes or so. Yeah.
We don't want to make you late. We don't want to make you late.
No, it's okay. It's I honestly here it's 3:45, so I've got about 15 minutes before I've got to go.
Cool. It's just a little question, really. Is when you were little and you were reading comics, what were your favorite comics? What did you read as a little kid?
As a kid, it was mostly
X-Men.
newspaper. No, I didn't get into X-Men until I was in middle school.
Okay.
Yeah.
As a kid, I mostly read newspaper comics. Like, I love Peanuts, Garfield. And Garfield was actually good in the 80s, if you remember.
I remember. Yeah. I used to buy the Garfield books. Yeah.
And Calvin and Hobbes. Like I got into Calvin and Hobbes when I was in like 4th grade or so, and that was
Brilliant.
amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
One
of my favorite all-time strips.
Oh, it's unbelievable. Yeah. And also He-Man. Like, I was a huge He-Man fan when I was like 4 or 5 years old. And they all came with these little comic books. And so I'd always,
Of course, yes.
I kind of forgot about them for a long time, but now I've got my own kid and we've been like the nostalgia hit me so powerfully when I, had Will. And I started getting back into the stuff I liked when I was a kid. And I was like, oh yeah, all this He-Man stuff. And I'm flipping through it. And I was like, oh, this is like where I get so much of my, like the way I think dragons and monsters and stuff are supposed to look like come from these little comic books.
Yeah.
And so those were definitely early influences. And it wasn't till middle school that I really got into Marvel and DC stuff. Specifically Marvel. It was like the X-Men cartoon that came on in the 90s. Like I was like
that was huge, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was like, this is awesome. And a friend of mine was really into X-Men and he wanted to get comics for a birthday. So like as a birthday gift, I found the comic book store, found some X-Men comics. And then I had to go back and buy new ones for him because I was like, all the ones I bought, I was like, I'm keeping these to myself.
It's great when you've got a friend who's also into the same thing as it when you're growing up and you're into comics, because sometimes, you can be the only one in your sort of school year that's actually into comics. I found that for a while, and then I did have a friend who and we used to go to comic shops together. It was a real sort of bonding thing.
Right. Yeah, it was fun. Like learning where like the first few comic book stores I went to, where the comic book stores in town, and it was exciting. Especially then, you don't have anything, so everything is new to you. Every issue is totally mind blowing with how awesome it is. So.
Yeah, it's great when you're young, and you read the issues over and over. I don't know about you. I used to read them.
Oh my God.
I get a comic, and I might only get a couple of comics a week. So I'd read them over and over and over.
I'd read every word in them, like all the ads, all the letters page. I remember I'd read the letters page, and some people would mention like, "Oh, I only read the comic once," and I was like, "What are you crazy? How are you only reading it once?" Because I would read the thing a dozen times.
Yeah. You get your money's worth out of them, don't you, when you're young?
Oh, totally. How about you guys? What were your favorite, or what were your first comics when you were kids? What really got you hooked on the hobby?
For me, it was Planet of the Apes. We had British reprints of Planet of the Apes comics.
Wow,
in glorious black and white, by some amazing European artists. That was my first sort of introduction to comics. And then it was Dracula comics, and a lot of stuff that I probably shouldn't have been reading at the age of 5 or 6.
Well, like what?
Because
well, Dracula, I suppose.
Yeah, there's a lot of horror comics about, you know. And I loved them. Monster comic, anything with monsters in it. There were these reprints, Alan Class comics. I don't know if you remember those, Ollie. And they had reprints of Marvel, EC, all sorts of different old comics, and a lot of them were horror stories, you know, as well as superheroes, action, adventure, all different genres. I find I was quite lucky, really, because there was I wasn't just reading superheroes, or I wasn't just reading humor comics. I was exposed to a lot of different genres through my cousin, who was like 10 years older than me. He just gave me all these old comics, you know. And eventually I discovered Marvel through Mighty World of Marvel, which was a British reprint anthology, and it had Spider-Man, Hulk, and was it Fantastic Four, I think?
Alan Moore's Captain Britain as well. That was the original comic strip, wasn't it, in the Mighty World of Marvel?
That was later on, but yeah, that was in there. So yeah, very lucky, really, to be exposed to all, and of course all the classic stuff that you talked about, Riley. It's like, you know, Calvin and Hobbes. And you know, that I loved that stuff well into being an adult. You know, I still have
it still cracks me up, man. It's just brilliant.
Well, I think if you get into it in 4th grade, you're missing a lot of the subtle humor. And I think I found Calvin and Hobbes much later on in life. I was about 18 or 19. And I think I was at just that right age to get it. And it was years later that I realized Calvin and Hobbes were two philosophers. So even then, it was like finding things. And I think because it's such a finite run, it's something you can always go back to. But my first experience of comics was very bizarre. And it sticks to me to this day because as a child, because half my family's German, I used to go over to Germany once a year. And I had one of, you know, the cool uncle who, and in his cool room, he had Little Nemo in Slumberland, which is quite a mind-blowing comic to first get your hands on. But also he had reprints of the dirty Tijuana Bibles that were going around. So it was really bizarre. I think I'd picked up on Superman and Spider-Man in the same way Shane has, but this is a very, very, very early and strong impression, because when you see Little Nemo in Slumberland, that stays with you forever. But so does the Tijuana Bible, which has got Popeye and Wimpy. I don't know if Wimpy with this very huge sort of phallic, and he's going around. It's like, I was too young. I was like, what the bloody hell?
Go straight over your head.
Sublime to the ridiculous. But also in Germany, I fell in love with art because I was never able to read the language. So I'd go into these shops, I had French comics, German reprints of American comics, and I'd just look at the art. And so it was, for me, it was a wonderful childhood, because over here in Britain, as well as in Germany, you had all of these European influences like Asterix, like Tintin, and like Valeria, all of these things that I think just gave us such a great mix of different comic books.
Yeah,
I mean, were you exposed to many European comics when you were growing up, Riley?
Not so much when I was young. I mean, nowadays that's some of my favorite stuff. Like I was just last night was reading some of Castle in the Stars by Alex Alice. Have you read that one?
Not read it, heard of it, but not read it. No.
That Alex Alice is amazing. Like if you ever get the chance, look for his Siegfried series. It's hard to find these days, or at least in America it is, but it's one of the most beautiful comics I've ever read. It's amazing. But for whatever reason, European comics have always kind of had a hard time getting a foothold in America. You know, every few years there'll be some publisher who really gives it a shot, but it never quite takes off. Like, you know, and you'll hear a lot of dumb reasons, like retailers think, oh, well, they're too big to fit on our shelves, and so where do I put it? And it's like,
in the boxes, they don't go in the bags.
Somehow the library doesn't have a hard time with books that are different sizes, but whatever. If that, you know, it just kind of goes to show what your, you know, the uphill battle it takes to get any comic book successful over here.
But I
Yeah.
suppose in American comics now we've picked up on this a few times, there's a lot more diversity of genres nowadays.
Yes.
With, Image, Vault Comics, and all of these other companies who haven't got a vested interest in Superman, Batman, and Spider-Man seem to be freer to do what they want. And obviously a lot has to do with the creativity as well.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And especially these days, there's like a bunch of creator-owned books are really seeing a lot of success.
Yeah,
which
I
is
mean, are there any genres that you would really want to have a go at in the not too distant future, Riley?
Every single project I work on, I think since I started working in comics, I always say that my next comic is going to be a sword and sorcery comic, like a, Lord of the Rings or He-Man type of thing. And somehow it always just turns into another superhero. But one of these days, I'm going to draw some characters with some swords and chainmail armor and all that fighting dragons. I can't wait.
Cool.
That sounds really good. Well, if there's a writer out there who's watching, whether it's now live or later on YouTube, and you've got a great sword and sorcery script, now you know who to send it to. Send it to Riley.
Exactly. Please.
It sounds like Riley might have an idea in his head already. All those years of reading He-Man.
Yeah, I definitely have a few, but it's weird. Like sword and sorcery is one of the few genres. Like you were saying, there's so many genres. There's so much diversity now. There's still not all that much stuff with sword and sorcery.
Not good stuff. No, there's a lot.
I mean,
there's a lot of bad sword and sorcery about. I find. But...
well, it's just not bad. It's just a lot that's not that interesting. There's a few manga titles that are okay.
I think that's the problem. It's so packed with tropes, isn't it?
Yeah,
and you can't help but stumble onto those tropes, and doing something different. I think I mean, when He-Man came out, as you say, that was different because it was like sci-fi and sword and sorcery.
It's just so wild. It's so like my favorite He-Man character is Manny Faces because what a concept. It's like his face changes, but it's not like he's disguised, like because he has this gigantic blue thing on his head. And when he turns into a monster, does he get monster powers or does only his face have monster powers?
It's so very odd. It's
very surreal. Anyone.
But that's what's so much fun about those characters in particular, because they were designed to be toys. And so a guy like that, it's such a cool toy concept. But when you try to turn it into a different genre, it's like, wait, what are we even doing here? Like, I don't understand what this is all about.
How can we explain the physics of this character?
Right. Like, oh, Mecha Neck, his neck gets really long. Like, really? Like that?
That's his plan.
That just make him more vulnerable, but it's like cool as a figure. So it's kind of an excuse to get these bizarre characters, and that's what makes them fun because they're like so much different than just it's another guy that shoots laser beams or whatever.
Yeah. That's it. I think they took a lot of drugs before they created those characters. Definitely.
Could be. I don't know. I should mention that I also I've got my own podcast that I do every week.
Oh right, plug away.
Hypothetical Island. I feel like I should mention that. I just thought about it because we've interviewed a bunch of people involved with He-Man in various ways, like people who worked on the comic books. We had Larry Houston, who drew some of the original He-Man comic books.
Yeah, cool.
We had Eric Treadaway, who's the main sculptor responsible for the He-Man stuff coming from the Four Horsemen Studios, like the action figures. And I think in the next week or two, we've got David Igo, who is the sculptor of Tweeterhead, who they have all these like the most gorgeous like sculptures, like I don't know, 2 foot tall like busts or like life-size busts of Skeletor and like these some amazing stuff on there. So yeah, if you want to,
where can people find Hypothetical Island?
We're on iTunes, Spotify, Audible, like pretty much anywhere.
Easy to find. Good.
Yeah. We're all over the place. So that's a fun podcast. So
I've noticed
when you're not listening to the Ice Cast, if you need something else to listen to, check out Hypothetical
Definitely. I'm going to be listening. That sounds great. And we did have suddenly a little spike in viewers when we started talking about He-Man then.
Really?
I don't know if that's a coincidence or not.
They have good taste.
Yeah, definitely. And I should say that we've had lots of comments all the way through the show, but I haven't been reading them out because I was conscious we needed to get through the show. But thank you to everybody who's commented.
Well, if there's any that let's do a couple, and then I'll go in like 5 minutes. How about that?
Yeah, I mean,
Cool.
I mean, so
it's
we've
not
had
so much questions; it's more people agreeing
comments,
with
yeah,
our love for Calvin and Hobbes and He-Man.
Yeah. I mean, and it's mostly Lucy.
Yeah, hey,
So-
I'm with Lucy. Get Riley on a He-Man gig.
Yeah, I mean that could be the answer. That's your sword and sorcery gig right there.
That would be amazing.
That'd be a great.
That'd be
fit.
awesome. That would be absolutely awesome. And yeah, some love for Calvin and Hobbes there as well from Lucy. Who we got? So we got a evening all from Len Judge Harrington, and he's called Len Judge Harrington because I know he's a Judge Dredd cosplayer. I know Len.
Excellent.
So evening, Len. He probably came on when we started talking about European comics.
Oh, yeah, we had Simon Fraser on our podcast the other week who does Nikolai Dante, among other 2080 things. He was a studio mate of mine for years and years before.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I had a great art studio in Brooklyn called Hypothetical Island, and that's so over COVID, it was kind of like an excuse to get to talk to the guys from the studio that we couldn't see anymore. And it just turned into like a regular thing. But yeah, we had a lot of awesome people in there, like me, George O'Connor, who's my co-host on the podcast. He does a series of books about the Greek gods, the Olympians. Becky Cloonan, Kari Randolph, Dean Haspiel, Joe Infernari.
You're showing off now, Riley.
Yeah. Simon Fraser. Yeah, there's a lot of and other people would just kind of come and hang out sometimes, like Jamal Eigel or Steve Ellis, or
very cool.
Yeah, it was a cool little Brooklyn scene.
It sounds it, man. It really does. We've got two little questions, and then we'll let you go. So from Lucy, surprise, surprise. If you were a He-Man character, who would you be?
Which one would I be? Oh my gosh. Well,
that's a good one.
I mean, obviously one of the ones with the big muscles, as you can see.
Obviously, of course.
And you should see me in a fur loincloth. I look spectacular. I mean, honestly, let's be honest. I'd probably be Orko. I'd just float around in a moo and screw everything up.
Oh, he's a cool character.
And give those words of wisdom at the end of every show.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Final question. Who did the letters and colors on the
On Outrage?
She's talking about Outrage. Yeah.
The letters were done by the legendary Pat Rousseau.
Oh.
And he's done, look up his credits. He's done like half the friggin' the lettering for half the friggin' comics in Marvel and DC.
Yeah.
And the colors are by Matt Herms, who he mostly does like Sonic the Hedgehog and Mega Man stuff. But when we were looking for a colorist, I just like fell in love with his stuff. It's amazing. It does the bright colors and the like the special effects he did. I was like, this is exactly the look we're going for Outrage.
I mean, it's absolutely perfect, isn't it, for that sort of character? It really does work. He's done a fantastic job on there. Okay, well, we've pretty much run out of time. And I want to say thank you so much for coming on, Riley. It's been an
thanks for having me, guys.
Oh, you're welcome. It's really good to talk to you.
And still 14 days on the Kickstarter.
Yes,
So
please
plenty
check
of
out the
time.
Kickstarter.
So please do, guys. Anyone who's watching, check out the Kickstarter. Pledge on it. There's lots of choices for all income types.
Right, and we are funded already, so you're guaranteed to get the book. It's not going to fall through. It's going to happen.
That's a good point, actually.
And we know it's already drawn because it's on Webtoons.
And it's already done, so it's coming out.
Yeah, excellent. Well, thanks a lot, Riley. We'll let you go.
Thank you, Riley.
And
enjoy the rest of your day.
Guys. Thank you so much.
Have a great evening. Good night.